Hey everyone, Braden Chase here, and I am happy to be starting this course with you here this semester, and I hope you guys have a really good time and that this is really fun for you. I am a little bit nervous, right, to get this going. This is a high-level writing course, and for a lot of you, some of these things will be review, but there are a lot of things that will be helpful for you in this course. So please watch and be very careful as we go through things so that you can learn all of those new things that are going to be so helpful for you so that you can learn and progress better and faster and make those next steps in your life so you can get on to college and get on to university and move on to those things that you want to do. Okay, so the first thing, one of our main focuses here in this class is essays. So it's writing essays. There's lots of different types of essays. There's different reasons for doing essays. There's different places for essays, etc. There's lots and lots of stuff in essays. And I don't want to talk about all of that right now, but I do want to answer the question, what is an essay? What is an essay? So it's this question, right? What is an essay? An essay is written, and that's important. I'm going to explain that in a little bit, but an essay is a written piece of text that explains information or an opinion. That's it. There's nothing more complex than that in an essay. Essays are written pieces of text that share an opinion or information. That's the whole thing. What we do with the essay, the way that we structure the essay, the type of essay that we write depends on our opinion. And it depends on the information we're trying to share. It depends on the reason we are writing that essay in the first place. So if I want to create an argument, well, I'm going to write an argumentative essay. If I'm going to do if I want to inform you about something, I will write an informational essay. And there's lots of different types and different structures. And we'll talk about all of that throughout this course. But for right now, we're just going to focus on what is it? Right? A written text that shares information or an opinion. So with those pieces, right now we know what we're talking about. Why am I saying written so much? And it's kind of funny. There's this story that from one of my past students, and she was really, really advanced. She was really good. She had great pronunciation. She had a really big vocabulary. She could talk about all these different things. She was very smart, do all these different things. But she kept just failing when we would do these writing tests, essay tests with her. She just produced these essays, and I was like, what? These are really confusing. What's going on? And I only saw a couple of them, but I'm like, okay, whatever. Then toward the end of second, third semester, she came in to me. She's like, what is going on? Why do I keep failing these things? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure. Let me see. Bring in your essays and let me see them. So I sat down, I looked at, 5 or 6 different essays that she'd done kind of all at the same time. And I'm looking at them going like, okay, I think I see it. And she's like, what? What am I doing? What's going on? And I'm like, you're talking. You're talking in these essays. And written things are not the same as spoken things. Spoken language, as I'm talking to you right now, is actually a different thing from the writing that we do. And the way that we write is different from the way that we speak. And that's not just pronunciation or spelling or anything like that. It's the actual way that we write an essay is not at all like speech and conversation. It just doesn't work. If even me, native speaker, if I show up and say, and write down word for word everything I say and try and turn that in as an essay, I will get a bad score, okay? Because it doesn't match. They're not allowed to match. Essays have rules, and one of the rules is not like speech, not like talking, okay? So you got to remember that. As you read through your essay, you can ask yourself, does this sound like a conversation? Or like a speech, or like a presentation? Because if it does, it's probably wrong. That's one of the key points with an essay writing, with academic essays. They can't sound like speech or like a conversation. Because if they do, that means you're doing something too casually and it's too simple. So we need to do things in a way that's more academic and more formalized, so not speaking. Okay? So that's kind of that first point. I wanted to talk about that because that's important. because we need to separate those. That's where a lot of people fall apart in their essays, as they try and write an essay like just in the same way that they speak. And you just can't. You need to learn how to step through that, and we will talk about that throughout this entire course. How do we separate our speaking voice from our writing voice? And how are they different, and what's going on with that? So stay tuned. It'll be fun. The other thing that I wanted to talk about here is the basic structure of an essay. So, and I know you guys know this, but basic structure is we have an introduction, and then we have a body, and bodies can be long or short, 2 paragraphs, or it can be 7 paragraphs or 10 paragraphs or whatever. Lots of different variation there. Normally in this class and in this course, we will be doing a 5-paragraph essay. Okay, there will be some others that'll be a little bit longer and some a little bit shorter, but the standard is 5 paragraphs. That is not a rule. That is not required. And often you can do more. Okay, if you have time, if your subject is really complex, you'll need to do more than just 5 paragraphs. But if not, you can do 4 paragraphs. Okay, so there is flexibility there. It's not a rule to do 5 all the time, but it's a good standard. Okay, it's a good, the majority of things will end up being about 5 paragraphs. Okay, so you have the introduction, and then you have 1, 2, 3 body paragraphs, and then last you have a concluding paragraph. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, conclusion, 5 total paragraphs. Now, like I said, that introduction might be 1 paragraph, and then the body might be 1, 2 paragraphs, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then you might have a conclusion at the end, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Just fine, doesn't matter. But what does matter is, are you sufficiently explaining the topic in the writing language instead of in the spoken language? And we'll talk about some paragraph structures later on in the course about which ways do we structure. The body paragraph is actually structured differently from the introduction paragraph. There's a pattern to an introduction paragraph that we can follow and we can learn. And there's a pattern to a body paragraph that we can copy, that we can imitate and learn. If we're always trying to reinvent what we're writing, it makes it harder. So let's learn the patterns so that we don't have to be constantly inventing things all the time. Okay, and then the conclusion as well. There's a pattern to how you write a concluding paragraph. Okay, and then the last question, or the last topic here is, what does a conclusion of an essay do? Or sorry, what does an essay do? Right? What is the point of an essay? Why do we even have essays? Whose idea was it to invent essays in the first place? They should be fired. Just kidding. So this idea, like what do essays do? Why do we have them? And there's a lot of reasons why. But one of the simplest is that it is an easy way to share information. Or I can go, okay, here's what I think. Okay? When I'm having a conversation with you, I can just tell you, oh, well, I think this. But when I'm in a conversation, I can usually ask, well, why do you think that? And like, oh, I think that because when I was 10 years old, I had this experience and it made me feel like this was true, which is great. Everybody has those experiences. It's awesome. But how do I explain that on paper when there's nobody asking me why? Do you see that difference there? When I'm in a conversation, we interact and I ask questions and you answer my questions and we converse. And it's really fun and dynamic, and happy. But when we're doing an essay, there's none of that. As the writer, I have to think through everything. Okay, how do I condense, how do I put an entire conversation into a document in a way that I can just hand it to somebody and have them understand everything, the entire conversation, without needing to have the conversation? It's kind of cool. How can you share the information? How can you share your opinion with somebody without offending them, by being respectful, and without needing to physically be present with them and have this kind of a conversation with them all the time? It's why letters are so important, right? We used to write letters to people with our hands, right? Write the letter and send it in the mail. And you had to be really careful about what you said, because if you said it wrong, man, those people over there, they're going to get mad and they're going to think you're rude. They're going to do all these things. It's going to be frustrating. So you'd better be really careful about what you write. Okay? Essays are the same thing. We're writing them down on paper. So we have to be really careful about what we say and how we say it and why we say it. because we're going to give it to somebody else. And they need to understand what we're saying without needing to ask any questions. Okay? So that's kind of the last thing. What is an essay? Do you remember? An essay is a piece of written text that shares information or an opinion. Okay? That's what an essay is. What does an essay do? Right? Essays share that information or that opinion in a way that communicates with somebody without them needing to ask any questions. So they can read through your essay from the introduction to the conclusion, understand everything you wanted to say without needing to ask any questions at the end. They know everything you're talking about. And it doesn't sound like a conversation. It sounds like a text. Okay? So I hope that's helpful for you guys. I know it's kind of superficial. This is our introductory video to the course. I hope you enjoy that. We will get into a lot more detail as we go along in the course, but we needed to get that foundation set up so that we can move through and get that more detail. Thank you guys very much. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.